It is a very, very real thing, and it surprised me how strong those feelings were.
For years, Ruth Langsford and Eamonn Holmes were the ultimate power couple that everyone looked up to. They seemed solid, working together on TV and joking around like best friends. But behind the scenes, things weren't as perfect as they looked. Now, at 66, Ruth is finally opening up about what really went wrong and why they decided to end their 14-year marriage. It turns out there was a lot of hidden tension and secrets that fans never saw on screen. From feeling lonely in her own home to finding out things she never expected, Ruth is ready to tell her side of the story. So what did Ruth say? And why is she speaking up now after all these years? Join us as we get into all the details. Ruth Langsford, the woman behind the power couple mask. Long before the headlines and long before the very public breakdown of her marriage to Eamonn Holmes, Ruth Langsford was just a regular girl with big dreams, quietly holding on to the idea that one day she would make something of herself. She was born in Singapore in 1960, but her story really began to take shape in London, where she was educated at Greycoat Hospital School. There was nothing flashy about those early years, nothing that hinted at the kind of public life she would eventually step into. But somewhere along the way, that quiet determination started to turn into something real. Her first steps into television weren't glamorous either. She started out as a continuity announcer and newscaster with ITV's regional station, Television Southwest in Plymouth. It was steady work, the kind that teaches you discipline and patience. And for a while, it was enough. But even then, things didn't stay still for long. In 1993, when West Country Television took over the franchise, the station shut down. And just like that, Ruth found herself closing one chapter alongside fellow announcer Ian Sterling, without really knowing what the next one would look like. That uncertainty didn't last long. By 1999, she had found her way onto Loose Women as a regular panelist, stepping into a space where personality mattered just as much as professionalism. It was a different kind of spotlight, more conversational, more exposed. She stayed until 2002, then stepped away, only to return years later, first as a stand-in anchor in 2010, and then fully reclaiming her place in 2014. This time, it wasn't just a role. It was a position of authority, sitting at the center of the conversation alongside names like Jane Moore, Charlene White, Christine Lampard, and Kay Adams. But while that was unfolding, something even bigger was happening in parallel. In 2000, Ruth began appearing as a guest presenter on This Morning. At first, it was occasional, nothing permanent. But by 2006, she had secured her place as a regular presenter, co-hosting alongside Philip Schofield and quietly becoming the longest-serving presenter the show had ever had. And then came a shift that would change everything, not just professionally, but personally too. Later that same year, Eamonn Holmes joined her as a co-host every Friday. At the time, it looked like perfect chemistry, easy conversations, shared laughter, the kind of on-screen connection audiences instantly trust. But what started as a working partnership slowly blurred into something more personal, more complicated, and eventually more fragile than it appeared. Still, Ruth kept moving. She became one of the main presenters on TV Travel Shop, hosted a string of shows like The Answer Lies in the Soil, The Great British Garden Show, Langsford Late, and Mysterious West, and even lent her voice to narrate Zoo Story in 2004. There was always something new, something keeping her in motion, never staying in one place long enough to feel stuck. By 2010, she was appearing on GMTV with Lorraine, stepping into reality TV with Marco's Kitchen Burnout, and then pushing herself even further with Born to Shine in 2011. It wasn't just about staying relevant. It was about proving again and again that she could adapt. Then came 2014, a year that seemed to tie everything together. She and Eamonn co-hosted Gift Wrapped, presenting themselves as a seamless duo, both on-screen and off. By 2015, they were fronting How the Other Half Lives, giving audiences a glimpse into lifestyles far removed from everyday reality. On the surface, it all looked aligned: career, partnership, public image, everything moving in sync. But at the same time, Ruth was quietly building something of her own. In 2017, she launched Ruth Langsford's Fashion Edit on QVC, carving out a space that was entirely hers. That same year, she stepped onto the dance floor for Strictly Come Dancing, partnered with Anton Dubecka. It was a different kind of challenge, one that pushed her out of her comfort zone. She didn't win, leaving the competition in November, but that wasn't really the point. It showed a different side of her, one that wasn't tied to anyone else. And still, the work kept coming. From co-presenting Do the Right Thing with Eamonn in 2018 to fronting Lose a Stone in 4 weeks alongside Dr. Amir Khan in 2019 and 2020, Ruth stayed visible, consistent, and dependable. Beyond television, she explored radio, co-hosting on BBC London 94.9, became a brand ambassador for major campaigns, and wrote columns that connected her to audiences in a more personal, everyday way. On paper, it all looked like a life that had been carefully built, piece by piece, with nothing out of place. But when you look closer, when you follow the timeline all the way through, you start to see something else. A career that kept growing, a partnership that kept evolving. And underneath it all, a story that wasn't as simple as it seemed. Because while Ruth Langsford was building this steady, successful life in public, something else was quietly unfolding behind the scenes, something that would eventually change everything. More than just work, how fame and friction finally pulled Ruth and Eamonn apart. In 2024, Ruth Langsford and Eamonn Holmes announced their divorce after 14 years of marriage, and just like that, a relationship people thought they understood suddenly felt unfamiliar. It hit harder because, for years, they had looked completely solid on screen. The chemistry was easy, the laughter felt real, and nothing about them suggested a couple quietly drifting apart behind the scenes. But before the headlines, before the statements, before everything started to unravel, there was a time when the two of them were deeply in love. They first met in 1997 through their mutual friend, television presenter Sally Mean, and from the start, there was a connection. Still, they didn't rush into the spotlight with it. At the time, Eamonn had only separated from his first wife, Gabrielle Holmes, 2 years earlier, and that history mattered. So they kept things private, not out of secrecy, but out of respect. And for Ruth, that choice said more than anything else could. She reflected that it showed the kind of man he was, the kind of father he chose to be, and the kind of integrity he carried. And instead of pushing her away, it only made her love him more. 2 years later, they finally went public. By 2002, their relationship had grown into something more grounded, more permanent, as they welcomed their son, Jack. And even that moment carried its own quiet story. Ruth later shared that she had found out she was pregnant the day before her godson Charlie's christening, a piece of news she held close, telling her best friend Sam first because Eamonn was away at the time. It was one of those small, personal moments that never makes it to the screen, but says everything about where they were as a couple then. As their personal life settled, their professional lives began to intertwine in a way that would define how the public saw them. In 2006, 9 years into their relationship, they started presenting the Friday edition of This Morning Together. Ruth had already been part of the show for years, but bringing Eamonn into that space changed the dynamic. Suddenly, it wasn't just work, it was their relationship, playing out in real time, in front of millions. And as easy as it looked, Ruth admitted that working with your partner isn't always simple, even if, most of the time, they made it work. From there, the pattern was set. They became a familiar duo across multiple shows, from Gift Wrapped to How the Other Half Lives, and later Lose a Stone in 4 weeks. They even leaned into the idea of their relationship on screen with Eamonn and Ruth's 7-year itch and Do the Right Thing. It all fed into the same image, a couple who could live together, work together, and still keep things light. At one point, Eamonn even joked that stepping away from television wasn't an option for them, questioning how TV could possibly manage without them, as if their presence had become part of the routine people expected. And somewhere along the way, that partnership turned into marriage. 13 years after they first met, and 5 years after Eamonn's divorce from Gabrielle was finalized, they got married at Elvetham Hall in Hampshire. It felt like a natural next step, a continuation of something that had already proven it could last. Soon after, they settled into a 6-bedroom home in Weybridge, building a life that, from the outside, looked secure, established, and complete. Even years later, Ruth spoke about that connection with a kind of quiet certainty. She described how Eamonn could be the first to joke at her expense, but just as quickly be the one to surprise her with thoughtfulness. She admitted that during her time on Strictly Come Dancing, she was giving him almost no attention, yet she trusted that he understood, that he always had. In her mind, that understanding was the reason they worked. But things don't always stay where they start. By 2020, there was already a shift, even if it wasn't obvious at first. In November of that year, they were removed from their roles on This Morning, replaced by Alison Hammond and Dermot O'Leary. It was a professional change, but it didn't land lightly. Reports suggested they were furious, and from that point, their paths slowly began to separate. Ruth stayed with ITV, continuing her role on Loose Women, while Eamonn moved in a completely different direction, joining GB News to host his own breakfast show. And just like that, the balance they had maintained for years started to tilt. Then came May 2024. The confirmation was simple, almost too simple for something that had lasted this long. Their spokesperson stated that their marriage was over and that they were in the process of divorcing. Behind that statement, there were hints of what had gone wrong, claims that their work commitments had taken them in different directions, pulling them apart little by little until there was nothing left to hold on to in the same way. Still, even in the middle of it, there was an effort to keep things steady. They made it clear they wanted to remain friends, to keep things amicable, to handle the end of their relationship with the same composure people had always seen from them. An official statement was expected, something for the public, something to close the chapter properly. But when you look at everything, from where they started to how it ended, it doesn't feel like one moment changed everything. It feels like something that shifted slowly, quietly, over time, until the version of them people thought they knew no longer matched what was really going on behind the scenes. Blindsided at home, the secret conversation that ended a 27-year romance. Over the years, Eamonn Holmes had been open about his health battles, and through it all, there was one constant presence beside him. Quiet, steady, and deeply involved in his care, Ruth Langsford wasn't just his partner. She was the one making sure he was okay, day after day, even as things got harder. And things did get harder. By 2021, Eamonn was dealing with chronic back pain that refused to ease up, something that slowly started to take over his life. It wasn't just discomfort anymore. It was something deeper. Eventually, he discovered the cause. 3 slip discs, all contributing to a level of pain that didn't just pass with time. Around the same period, he also dislocated his pelvis, adding another layer to an already difficult situation. Surgery followed, but it didn't fix everything. His first spinal operation was meant to help, but recovery didn't go the way anyone hoped. Instead of getting better, things became more complicated. In 2022, he underwent a second operation, this time for a broken shoulder. And by 2023, there was a third surgery. One after the other, each attempt to fix his body seemed to lead into another challenge. And slowly, his reality began to change. He admitted that he was now largely using a wheelchair, describing the experience as horrendous, something he had been dealing with for 2 years straight. Day-to-day life wasn't simple anymore. He explained that he needed help getting out of a chair and that carers were with him throughout the day, assisting with things most people don't think twice about. He shared that someone helped dress him in the morning, undress him at night, and even prepare his meals. It was a level of dependency that changed everything. But even in that, there was a rhythm. He mentioned that once he was seated, he could still function, still do what he needed to do, still hold on to some sense of independence. And in the background of all of this, Ruth was there, present through the appointments, the recovery, the frustration, the quiet moments no one else saw, which is why what came next felt so much heavier. In May 2024, the two of them confirmed their split, bringing an end to a relationship that had lasted 27 years. And for Ruth, it didn't feel like something she had seen coming. She admitted that, from her point of view, she believed she was in a very happy marriage. That belief made everything harder to process, leaving her questioning whether she had missed something, whether she had been too focused elsewhere, whether there were signs she hadn't seen. But even in that confusion, she made it clear there was no point assigning blame. Still, the impact was undeniable. She spoke about how she hadn't expected to find herself in that position, how at the beginning she wasn't strong, and how it left her feeling broken, not just in heart, but in the future she had imagined for herself. There was a version of life she thought she was building, and suddenly that version was gone. And while she was trying to make sense of that, things on the outside were already moving forward. Shortly after the separation, Eamonn went public with a new relationship, dating counselor Katie Alexander. The timing alone raised eyebrows, coming just months after the breakup was confirmed and adding another layer to a situation that was already difficult to understand from the outside. Then more details started to surface. Reports claimed that the breakdown of their marriage was triggered by something Ruth hadn't expected at all. It was said that she overheard Eamonn on the phone, having what was described as a cozy, intimate conversation with another woman, believing he was home alone. But he wasn't. Ruth was there, somewhere else in the house, hearing everything unfold in real time. That moment changed something. She confronted him, and what followed wasn't just an argument. It was a shock that landed on both sides. Not long after, it was reported that she found messages on his laptop, something that deepened the situation even further. For Ruth, it wasn't just about what she heard anymore. It was about what she saw, something that felt like a real blow, especially considering everything she had been doing to support him through his health struggles. And from there, things didn't recover. The marriage, already strained, continued for a few more weeks, but it never found its footing again. That discovery became the breaking point, the moment where everything tipped over, the final push that led to the announcement the public would later see. And yet, when they confirmed the split, the statement was simple, just a few words saying their marriage was over and that they were divorcing. No details, no emotion, nothing that reflected the weight of everything that had happened behind closed doors. Since then, Ruth has been trying to move forward in her own way. She's been open about the fact that she isn't ready to start something new, that she hasn't fully healed from what she's just come out of. At the same time, she's also made peace with where she is now, accepting that the marriage is over and choosing day by day to pick herself up rather than fall apart. She admitted that relationship breakdowns are never easy, whether it's marriage or friendship, but at some point you have to decide how you're going to respond. You either let it consume you or you find a way to keep going. And that's where she is now. Therapy, tears, and tell-alls. How Ruth is reclaiming her life after the betrayal. Nearly 2 years after the end of her marriage, Ruth Langsford is no longer holding everything in. This time, she's choosing to speak, not in passing comments or short interviews, but in her own words, through her book, Feeling Fabulous. And with that, the story people thought they understood is starting to shift, piece by piece. Because behind the calm exterior she carried at the time, there was something much heavier unfolding. In the memoir, Ruth opened up about just how deeply the breakup affected her in those early days. She described a kind of sadness that didn't just sit in the background, but threatened to take over completely. After 26 years with someone, building a life, sharing routines, imagining a future that felt certain, losing that doesn't feel like a simple ending. It feels like everything you thought was fixed is suddenly becoming uncertain. She admitted that she always believed she and Eamonn Holmes would be together forever, and realizing that wasn't going to happen forced her into a reality she hadn't prepared for. And that shift was immediate. She explained that life suddenly looked different, unfamiliar, almost unrecognizable, with no clear idea of what the months or years ahead would bring. That uncertainty didn't just pass quickly. It stayed. She described herself as devastated in the beginning, struggling to process what felt like an abrupt end, something that, from her perspective, came as a huge shock. In her own reflection, she admitted that, in her mind, she had been in a very happy marriage, which only made the aftermath more confusing. There were moments of questioning, wondering if she had missed something, if she had been unaware, if she had been too busy to notice the cracks forming. Even in that spiral, she pulled herself back from placing blame. What she couldn't escape, though, was the emotional weight of it all. She described feeling broken at the start, not just in her heart, but in the dreams she had quietly built over the years. There was a version of her future she had always seen clearly, and suddenly it no longer existed. That loss didn't just sit in the past. It followed her into the present, forcing her to rethink everything. And what made it even harder was where it all unfolded, not behind closed doors, but in full view of the public. She admitted that having something so personal play out in front of everyone, with constant opinions, speculation, and commentary, was one of the most difficult parts of the entire experience. Returning to this morning, a place that once held so many memories for both of them only made that reality feel more surreal. She reflected on standing in that same studio where they had worked side by side for years, acknowledging quietly that not everything is meant to last forever. And in the middle of all that noise, she turned to therapy, not just to cope, but to understand. She explained that counseling gave her something different from the comfort of friends. Friends would always take her side, but a therapist asked questions, pushed her to reflect, and helped her make sense of her own reactions. It became a space where she could process everything without judgment, where she could begin to find some kind of balance again. Over time, that process helped her see something she couldn't see at the beginning, that there was still light ahead, even if she couldn't feel it yet. Because at one point, she really didn't. She admitted there were moments where she felt completely consumed, where it seemed like happiness might not return. But slowly, she began to understand that sometimes you have to create that happiness for yourself. It doesn't just come back on its own. And part of that process meant facing uncomfortable truths. In her memoir, she touched on a moment that left her shaken, discovering that Eamonn had been having private conversations with other women. She didn't dwell on the details or turn it into accusations, but she didn't hide the impact either. It added another layer to the confusion, another reason why the ending felt so disorienting. But even then, she made it clear that the breakdown of the marriage wasn't about one single moment. It was about everything that followed. She described the end of such a long relationship as something that takes time to unravel, not just emotionally, but mentally too. There were moments where her thoughts spiraled, where she imagined being alone, uncertain, questioning what her life would look like moving forward. But then something shifted. Experience, perspective, something grounded her again, reminding her that while it hurt, it wouldn't destroy her. And as she worked through that, other reflections surfaced too. She spoke about the life she once imagined, even the smaller, quieter dreams. At one point, she had considered having another child after their son Jack, but Eamonn, already a father of 3, didn't share the same vision. It wasn't an argument, not a firm refusal, but enough to make her pause and step back. And looking back now, it became one of those moments that showed how their paths didn't always align in the way she once thought they did. But while Ruth has started to open up, that decision hasn't landed quietly. Behind the scenes, there's a growing tension. Sources claim that Eamonn is deeply unhappy with how things are beginning to look, especially as her words start to shape the public narrative. It's been said that he feels she's pushing things in a direction that paints him as the villain, and that there's still a lot that hasn't been said publicly. According to insiders, he believes she needs to be careful, because if things continue this way, he won't stay silent forever, and up until now, he has. He's chosen not to go back and forth publicly, holding on to what many have seen as a controlled, measured silence. But that silence is starting to feel strained, especially as reactions build and opinions harden. There's a sense that he feels misunderstood, that the full story hasn't been told, and that, from his point of view, a marriage doesn't fall apart because of one person alone. At the same time, their lives have moved in completely different directions. Not long after the split, Eamonn stepped into a new relationship with Katie Alexander, and it became public almost immediately. They were seen together, out in the open, moving forward without hesitation. But even that hasn't been untouched by pressure, especially with his ongoing health struggles continuing to shape his daily life. On the other side, Ruth has taken a slower, more deliberate approach. She's remained single, not rushing into anything new, not trying to replace what she lost. She's been clear that while she hasn't been put off love or even marriage, she isn't actively searching for it either. And when she speaks about it, there's an honesty there. She admitted that the idea of getting close to someone again still brings a level of anxiety, something she's still working through in her own time. And maybe that comes from what she believed before. She once saw Eamonn as her soulmate, her version of Mr. Right, the person she thought she would grow old with. And now, looking back, there's a quiet weight in that realization, not just about what was lost, but about how different things turned out from what she once imagined. So now, the story sits in an uneasy place. Ruth is speaking, finally letting people into her side of what happened, while Eamonn is still holding back, at least for now, watching how the narrative is taking shape. One is processing out loud. The other is choosing silence, but not indefinitely. And that's where things stand. Because this doesn't feel like a story that has reached its end. It feels like something still unfolding, with pieces that don't fully line up yet, emotions that haven't completely settled, and truths that may not have fully surfaced. And if this is only one side beginning to open up, then the real tension isn't just in what's already been said. It's in what might still be waiting to come out. Do you think Ruth's book is going to cause more harm than good? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also click the next video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.